What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel, or welcome for the first time. Haven't really said that one yet. Today we've got Lando up in our heroes and villains guide, and let's just get right into it. Oh, that's my bad. Just go ahead and ignore that first star card, as it's a piece of crap. Oh, okay, and that's better. Hot and cold. Of course, we're going to want to give Lando a little bit of extra health, and by a little bit, I mean 150. That's a lot. Considering Lando starts off at 650, which is also, I believe, what Leia starts off at. That's not a ton of health to work with, even though it's more than the trooper-based characters that you play as. The heavy gets 200, officer, assault, and specialist, all three get 150, and then we've got our slightly heavier specialists like the enforcers and the rocket troopers, but 650 still is not a whole lot for a character that is supposed to not be dying a ton. You're going to want to have that 800 health for Lando. The next thing you're going to want to focus on is his middle ability, his sharpshooter ability. Oh god, I don't know what it's called, to be honest with you. I just don't ever look at the names of things, but you know what I'm talking about, the thing that like automatically locks on and gives you all those red targets, and you saw me just absolutely annihilate the enemy team right there. It is by far his best ability, and it's not even close. His smoke grenade is, it's alright. It's more so used in the AI game modes, so co-op is actually not too bad. That's what I'm using it here in, because you could throw it down, and for some reason, it actually prevents the AI from, not hitting you, preventing like completely, but they are far less likely to hit you through that smoke than if there was no smoke at all, so that's probably another one. But then his disabler is also pretty good, and that's where this next star card comes into play, which is quick shock. And this is one of the three that I don't really recommend taking off. Pretty much have it on at all times, whether it's heroes versus villains or any trooper-based game modes such as Supremacy, Galactic Assault, pretty much anything where it's going to be low health individuals that you'll be fighting or high health individuals. It really doesn't matter, because without this card on, your little shock thing, or your, I guess technically it's a scanner, because when you throw it, it will show nearby enemies to the scanner, even through objects, which is very nice. It's great. Trust me, that ability itself is already great. But if you detonate it, it will shock those enemies, and they'll be frozen in place, kind of like Aiden's shock droid, for just a small amount of time. Now, that amount of time is not very good, and the scanner, when it shows you the nearby enemies, it's not a huge radius, so it's not really best to use it as a scanner. I mean, obviously throw it and see if there's any enemies in an area if you can't see that specific area, of course, but after about 2-3 seconds, you no longer need to see what's in that area, because the first scan, or maybe even second scan, has already shown you everything nearby. So this star card allows you to shock it, and if you do it within 5 seconds of it sticking to a surface, which, trust me, you'll have plenty of time, it will give you a 30% longer shock. So those enemies that you're just unloading into will be shocked and stationary for an additional 30%. I'm not exactly sure how long it is, because I haven't sat down and really timed it yet, but it's noticeable for sure. If you've been using the shock already and you haven't had the star card on, when you put it on, you'll notice a huge difference. And for those of you who have already had it on, just keep it on. You were doing something right. Keep it on. Don't experiment by taking this one off. If you're going to experiment with anything, experiment with this next star card, which is called Wide-Eyed. Now, I'm not recommending you experiment by taking this one off. I'm just saying, if there's a star card you're going to experiment with, go ahead and do it with this one. Now, I personally don't take this one off ever, because I think that is his best ability, a sharpshooter. And if you have Wide-Eyed on, you get an additional 40% range on his, I guess, automatic locking or auto target, aimbot, whatever the heck you want to call that ability. You get an additional 40% range, which is ridiculous. I mean, just look at these clips that I've got. I am absolutely stacking the kill meter, whatever. I mean, you'll just see on the top right of the screen all those kills just pop up. Warbird, Warbird, Warbird. I mean, it really does just mow down entire groups of enemies very easily. I think in this specific setting, Hoth, we were able to hold the enemy to just these 2 points. They got the first 3 from us, and we held them from these 2. We had plenty more to fall back on, but we didn't need it. And a big part of that, I don't want to take credit for an entire team effort, but a big part of it really is Lando's crazy ability for that sharpshooter, where he can just lock on and absolutely unload. Now, there do seem to be a couple issues with it, and I'm just going to be completely honest about that. First of all, you saw there I locked on to, Jesus, who knows how many targets. It had to have been at least 8, if not more. But if one target is standing in front of another target that you've locked onto, and you shoot that front target, sometimes he will not automatically shoot that back target. He will take that person in front of them and count that as an obstruction. And what I mean by an obstruction is, let's say you lock onto somebody and you're just about to shoot them, but that person goes behind some cover, kind of like how I'm hiding behind that snow hill right there from the little ATST. Let's say someone goes into cover after I've locked onto them, but I've pulled the trigger and I'm just about to shoot them. If they are hidden from my direct line of sight, whether I'm in cover or they're in cover, it will not shoot them. So, if there is an enemy who is standing in front of another enemy who you've locked on to, and you shoot that enemy, if you don't have too many other targets for him to shoot, sometimes he will treat that as an obstruction, because let's say that's his next target to move on to, right? Is a target immediately behind the person you just shot. The person you just shot is still in the way because their body hasn't dropped yet. You literally just killed them, so his little ability thing still reads it as that person is not able to be shot yet. So it moves on to the next target and it tries to shoot that one, and so on and so forth until it's done with all of his targets. Now, I mean, this bugs the shit out of me because technically you could just shoot through that target and still hit them. You can shoot through an enemy and still hit an enemy behind that. It's just the way the game's mechanics work. I'm not sure why, because there's no laser holes, there's nothing like that, nothing crazy in this game. It was made a little while ago, but it's just something that I think was planned on getting tweaked or maybe refined later, and EA pulled the plug on DICE, and DICE just, I mean, if you've got no funding, you obviously can't keep working on a game, especially if your, I guess, primary company has pulled the plug on it. So that is definitely one thing to look out for when playing as Lando, but it makes it, that ability just makes it so easy to regain health. You can go from almost no health to a ton like in seconds, because you, let's just say worst case scenario, you only lock on to 3 people. That is 30 health total, because you get 10 for each of those back to your health bar. And that doesn't sound like a ton, but you do that, and then you do some regular damage with your actual pistol's firing ability to another opponent, and you stay out of combat. You fully regenerate to whatever it is you've got. Let's say it's 550. If that doesn't sound like a ton, but that's still way more than what you would have had you not gotten those kills. So it really is a life-saving tool to use, is that ability. Alright, and this last card I'm going to talk about, I almost didn't put in here. I was just thinking, do I really ever use it? Do I? No. Do I think it's worth it? Absolutely. 100%. This is a card that may serve you some use. I already think Lando's blaster does absolutely fine, but to be completely honest, for every 3 opponents I kill as Lando, 2 of them are with his sharpshooter ability and 1 of them is with his blaster. And most of the time, if it's with the blaster, it's because I've shocked that enemy already, or sometimes I'm just close proximity and I'll unload into that person, get a couple headshots real easy. So for me, adding extra blaster heat to Lando's gun just wasn't really worth it. But if you play Lando a different way than me, then this may be a really good card for you. Most cards I think people can get away with and working in a certain, I guess, your playstyle of a certain character, you may do significantly better with that playstyle than I do with mine. But I've done what's worked with the way I've played the game, and you've got to figure out what works with you. Now, I can just tell you what has worked for me and tell you why it's worked, but at the end of the day, you really just have to kind of play around with each of the cards and figure out which one works the best with your playstyle. That's why, right off the bat, though, I disregarded that, I guess, the scanner star card is what it was. It allows it to stick around for longer, and I did that because you don't want it to stick around for longer. You want to throw it down, get a quick read of who's in that proximity of the scanner, and then you want to shock it and then go in and take out that shocked opponent. So instead of having that card on, just replace it with the one that allows the shock to do it for 30% longer than it would have been without that, because it's going to be a lot easier to kill those opponents than if you had the one that stuck around for an additional 5-10 seconds, whatever the star card is. I don't agree with it staying around longer than it already stays, because if you wanted, even if you have that 5-second deployment where it gives you the 30% longer shock, if you have that on, you can wait past the 5 seconds and it won't automatically deploy. It'll keep scanning. It stays around for a decent amount of time. I just personally don't use that feature too often, because most of the time I'm able to figure out where people are without relying on a 10-second scanner or whatever it may be. So the last thing I kind of want to do for Lando is just go over some basic strategies. Lando is a very, I don't want to say easy, because, I mean, no hero or villain is really easy to use. It's just a matter of playstyle, figuring out how to use them, and using their abilities the best possible way you can. So, to me at least, Lando's a very easy character to play as. I mean, you basically just spam his pistol. Just right there, I killed Vader with my normal pistol ability. Right here, I'm going to kill an officer. I kill another person with my sharp shot. And then, I think actually Luke finished him off there. Yeah, I was going to kill that guy as well. It's just, I mean, I'm piling up kills in this. And this, I mean, yes, it is co-op. So it's a little bit easier because it's AI. But you also have to remember, those AI have aimbot. They can shoot you. If you're really close, they will just unload and tear your health to pieces. Whereas a regular player may kind of get sweaty in the moment and mess up and miss a bunch of their shots. So it is definitely a different experience to play in co-op, but it's still one of the game modes that you can progress your character as. So this is me doing well as Lando. You can do just as bad with Lando. It's partially about the map that you pick him on too. If you're going to pick a map that is very tight, close quarters, you've got a lot of I guess nooks and crannies and obstacles. I personally don't think Lando does that great with obstacles. If he has a lot of things obstructing his view, his sharp shot ability becomes nearly useless, because the enemies that you're locking onto for his little aimbot ability right there, is all they have to do is duck into a little alleyway, or they have to hide behind a tree, or just crouch behind a barrel. I mean, there's just so many ways to avoid his sharp shot ability. But if you're out in the open, if you're in kind of a wide map, like this isn't the best example because indoor is a little closed off at certain points, but this specific part of the map is very out in the open, and it's just widespread. So it's easier to see all of your opponents, and there's less places for them to go. Now, yes, you will take more damage, but that sharp shot ability is a god saver sometimes. You can go from, let's say you've got 10 people in your sharp shot ability locked onto. Worst case scenario, you kill, what, 5 of them? That's 50 hit points that you've just now regained on top of whatever your health regen was already trying to regain. And then if you go do that one more time, that's 100 total. Or best case scenario, you lock on to 10 and you hit all 10 and kill all 10. That is 100 hit points you just got back instantly. That's 100 that you now have to play with. If you have a Leia on your team, you can go stand in that bubble and regain some of that health. You see, I didn't quite make it back to 800, but I still went on because I was confident I could get some kills and maybe regain some health. Now I ended up only getting 1 or maybe 2 here. But it's really easy to regain health as Lando, as long as you're not pushing too aggressively and you're not, just doing dumb things with Lando. Like if you're relying on the smoke, you're going to die. If you're relying on his shock grenade ability, you're probably going to die. If you're relying on the sharp shot ability, there's a good chance you're going to go on some long kill streaks. If you're even relying on his pistol and just being selective about which areas you push and which ones you kind of hold back from, you could actually do well just as if you relied on his sharp shot ability. But it really is about learning how to play as him. Don't be too aggressive because he doesn't have a lightsaber where he can block. Obviously, he's just a blaster hero. But blaster heroes can be as deadly, if not more deadly. It's just a different approach for how to get those long kill streaks. Also, when using his blaster and you get to just about max heat, just before it gets all the way to the overheat point, don't let it get there, hit square, and then it goes down so much faster. Now, if you're one of those players that's very good about hitting it on the gold or hitting it on the blue once it has overheated, then by all means, let it overheat and keep blasting that thing until it does overheat, and then you can just immediately reset it because it's faster that way. I'm always too focused on my surroundings and the game itself, like the combat aspects, trying to get angles on people in this game. So I'm never really too focused on my blaster heat, and when I'm resetting my blaster heat, I'm not looking down to hit the blue. I'm always just resetting it before it even gets to that overheating point. But that's just my playstyle. So if you are one of those people that can hit the blaster heat well, go for it, because it's going to make you just that much better at using Lando. So I think did I cover everything? I believe I did. If I left anything out, or if you've got any questions at all, as usual, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section down below, and then I'll do my best to get back to you in a timely manner. But if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.